my kitchen today and I'm going to show you how to make cold process soap. Before we get started, I want to show you what I've got out. I've got all my supplies ready to go here on the counter. So first thing that I need is safety equipment. I've got my goggles to protect my eyes, and I've got gloves to protect my hands. I'm also wearing shoes and socks so that if anything spills on the floor or splashes, my feet are protected. And what I'm protecting against is the lye that we're going to be using today, which is caustic. It will cause a chemical burn if it gets on your skin, so you want to be sure that doesn't happen. So I've got my safety equipment ready to go. I've also got windows open in the background so I have ventilation, because when you mix the lye with the water it does produce a strong odor and you want to be sure that you don't pass out from the gases that are produced. So I've got my safety equipment. I've got a kitchen scale that I use to measure all my oils. I've got my distilled water and lye. I've got the various oils I'm going to be using. I've got a fragrance and a pigment. I've got my stick blender that's going to mix all the oils and lye together. And then finally I've got my mold that's lined with parchment paper or freezer paper so that the soap does not stick to the mold. And then I've got a towel to wrap my mold in at the end of the process. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first step is to mix the lye and the water. So I'm going to turn on my scale. And I'm going to add my container that the lye and the water is going to go into, and I'm going to zero that out. Now that that's at zero, we're going to add 16.5 ounces of water, and that is distilled water. Okay, I've got my 16.5 ounces of water, and now I'm going to set it in the sink. And I'm going to add my lye to the water. You always add lye to the water or it will cause an explosion if you add the water to the lye. We do not want that to happen. So slowly I'm going to pour 7.35 ounces of lye into the water and stir. This is going to cause a chemical reaction, and the lye water is immediately going to start heating up. And as I said, it does produce fumes, so that's why it's important to have the windows open to be well ventilated. And I can already feel the heat coming off of that. I've got my thermometer. Let me show you just how hot this is already. .196 degrees. Okay. So now that the lye and the water are mixed, we're going to put this in an ice bath to cool it off, because we need to get this down to 105 degrees. So I'm going to set that in the ice bath, and I'll stir it and check the temperature periodically. Now we're going to go to the oils. So again, I'm zeroing out my scale, and I'm going to add 14 ounces of olive oil, okay, 14 ounces. Then I'm going to add 6 ounces of palm kernel oil, 14 ounces of palm oil, and 14 ounces of coconut oil, and 2 ounces of castor oil. come back over and stir my lye and check the temperature. And we're down to 163. Now we're going to melt these oils. We're going to melt them over medium heat. Okay, my oils are melted, so I'm going to take this over to my ice bath because we need to cool this also. I'm going to check on my lye. (117°). So we're going to take that out of the ice bath and start cooling the oil. The oil cools a lot faster than the lye, and that's why we started the lye right away. This is up to 164 degrees, 165. And I'm going to stir constantly so that the oil doesn't solidify on the bottom, on the coldest part of the pan. We want to get the oil and the lye to 105 degrees at the same time, and that's when we mix them. So this is down to 106, 105, 106, okay. So I've put my lye back in the ice bath to get it down to 105 degrees. And before I mix those, I need to put some oil in with my pigment. So you can see that the oil's changed once the lye mixes with it. And you can see in there these little white swirls and lines. That's called tracing, and we want our oils to trace. Okay, I'm going to add my fragrance, and I chose a fragrance called Aloha, and I like to try to match my color to my fragrance. So this one smells tropical, fruity. Reminds me of Hawaii, and so I thought a sunny yellow would be good with that. But first I'm going to set aside some of the white. Because I want my soap to be two-colored. And now I'm going to add my pigment. It looks orange, but it's going to turn yellow. Okay, now I'm going to pour my soap into the mold, and you can see that it's already starting to thicken up, which is good. We want it to do that. I shook out the air bubbles that might be in there. And then I'm going to pour my second layer over. Smooth it out. Now that I have my soap poured, I like to take a chopstick and just do a little swirl pattern on the top for some texture. And once that's done, I'll spray it with some rubbing alcohol, and that helps to eliminate any ash that might form on the top as it cools. And I'm going to put my lid on. Secure it in place. And then I'm going to wrap my soap. This insulation allows the soap to cool at a slower pace than it normally would. We're trying to keep the heat in so that it cools at the proper rate. Now I'm going to set that aside for 24 hours and we'll check on it tomorrow. So it's been 24 hours since we made our soap, and this is my favorite part of the process where I get to unwrap the soap and see how it turned out. So here we go. There we go, the finished loaf of soap. Yesterday we had an orange orange looking pigment, and today we have a nice bright yellow bar of soap. So now we're going to cut our soap, and we made a cutting guide. We've got a groove in there that we use to cut, and then we've got a couple of different attachments, I guess. Depending on how thick or thin we want the bars of soap to be, and we usually use this one that makes 15 bars of soap, so we'll slide that in, push the bar of soap against the end, and there we have our first bar of soap. Now there's two different ways that you can handle this. You can see that the edge is a little bit rough after that cut. So either I can just smooth it with my finger, like that, and then I stick it on this drying rack. We've got screen material, and that allows airflow so that it dries evenly over the next month. Or I can take a knife or a cutting tool. In this case I use a potato peeler, and we can just gently cut the edges down. And that gives it a nice finished edge. So I'm done cutting the soap. I was actually able to get 16 bars out of that batch, and if you look closely, each one looks a little bit different. They've got different textures and the pattern of the white against the yellow, and that makes it fun. You get unique bars, they smell amazing, and they look so pretty, and in a month they'll be ready to use. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you for watching.